Yesterday we were refining the blocking, or continuing the blocking of this shot. Now when I say continuing the blocking, we had blocked out kind of the whole thing. As you can see from these last frames, here we go. Get my tablet working. There you go. So as these last frames here, you can see there's no expression and the poses are very basic overall. We went over the whole shot that we had done before and kind of refined the poses, pushed them a little bit more. They are not final. These are still, I would call them rough poses, but they are a little bit more, what's the right word I'm looking for? A little bit more refined. We're kind of pushing the mechanics of the shot a lot more, and we put in a lot more poses compared to the very first pass that we've done. So for anyone who hasn't seen what we have so far, here are the poses and the animation. There's still about 3 more keys / breakdowns that I would want to put in at the beginning of the shot here, just for clarity's sake, especially at the mid swing and the recovery of the swing. So that would be, stop, there we go. So right in here, because as you can see between these two poses, we're not kind of getting a good read on how he's swinging. And then after here, this way we can really feel the speed of the swing and the energy he's putting into it. I would also want to put another key between these two poses right here. Even though there's not a big change happening here, the reason I want to put an extra key is if you look at the timeline, see how there's keys on like 4s and 5s right here, and then we've got another 5 and a 4 here. And then in this section, we've got keys on 9s right there. And well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's essentially a hold. Because we've got so many keys at a certain kind of timing before and then after, when we hit this point, it kind of messes with the flow. And if I can just put one more key in there and kind of smooth that out and get a better feel of how this whole section is going to read, might as well. I'm going to have to put a key there anyway later on. So why not? Now at the beginning, you'll notice that the timing is a little slower right here. I'm not going to put more keys in there, at least not for the blocking pass, because that whole section is already slow. There's so few keys there. I'm not going to put more for no reason. I hope that makes sense. It's essentially, in many cases, I try to keep the keys relatively even without like having a huge section of really compact keys and then just a random gap in the middle. So yeah, so if we have time today, we'll add those 3 keys in there. The main thing that we're going to focus on today is just getting this walk out, which is actually not that many keys. Right now we have the character throwing the baseball bat, and then the very next pose, his hat is on his hand is at his hat, and then he's walking out. And we've only got the contact poses right here for the walk. So it's not really reading clearly. We're not getting the personality of the walk. How is he moving through the scene? If we were to hit splines right now, just as an example, you can see that the character just kind of slides through. We get this beautiful moment, which I'm kind of sad that we're going to lose as we go through this. Eventually all of this beauty is going to be gone. But there's just no information in there. So we definitely need more visual information to help solidify what the heck is going on in this section. So let's just jump right in here. Now, the very first thing I'm going to do is just take all my controls here, go to, I believe it's 67, set a key. Right now I'm following the timing of my reference quite closely. This is really dependent on what type of animation that I'm doing. If I'm doing a more VFX style shot, something that has to be more realistic, I will typically follow the timing of my reference fairly closely if I haven't retimed my reference to begin with. And then from there I adjust the timing. If I'm doing something much more cartoony, I will plan out my timing beforehand and then just kind of animate to that new timing. It really just depends. There's not one way you have to do this. You can do it whichever way you want. Just keep in mind that in the end, most likely this timing is going to change. This is not my final timing, it's just the timing I'm using at the moment. So we've got this new key in here. And the big thing that I want to do, and let me get my headphones set up here. There we go. So the main thing that's going to happen here is that the character is going to throw the baseball bat. At this point, the bat is going to actually be out of the character's hand. So my hand is actually going to be finally free. So let's actually just copy this pose to the next one there. And then double check this here. Okay. And this as well. I'm just going to turn off the blend parent. Boop. There we go. So what that means is the hand is now free to move on its own. So we get that. Now, I do want a quick hand pose so we actually feel it releasing. And Suba, how's it going? Hello. And Blaze, thanks for the reminder. That feels better. Also, hello Blaze, how's it going? So, we'll just need a quick hand pose right here. So I'm just going to open up my studio library. Where did it open up to? The joy of having multiple monitors. Waiting to see which monitor it pops up on. Okay. So let's go into the hands, and I want a nice big open hand. Probably, that's probably a little too much. Now, normally I like to pose out the hands myself and really get some nice detail, but because this is just a quick blocking pass, a very important thing to keep in mind is that as you're working, you have to kind of keep in mind what is the goal of this thing that I'm doing right now. The goal of the animation that I'm doing right now is not to create a final beautiful pose. The goal is to block out a scene so that I can, if I was in a studio environment, that I can get buy-off from my director or from my supervisor, from my lead, and keep going. So spending time refining a beautiful hand pose that's perfectly crafted, not really the point right now. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time trying to get this hand pose just perfect. Now I do feel like that's a little too spread, so I'm going to actually try a quick different one here. There we go, that's better. It was opening up the hand too much. I wanted the fingers to extend, not widen out. There we go. That's better. Now later, as I get approval from the director and the supervisors go, yep, that's good, keep going, then I can go back in here and do a much better hand pose, and at least I've got somewhere to start. So we've got that. Now let's get the feet in here. I do like to get the feet in place as I'm working, mostly because it kind of helps to determine where I need to put the body. So for example, I know that the foot here is going to contact the ground. It's probably going to slip forward a little bit right there, so I'd avoid that gluey feeling. We talked about this a lot yesterday. If you look at the feet throughout my shot here, let's just kind of get in close right there. If you look at the feet, I try to avoid the feet feeling like they are locked in place at any point. You can see they slip around quite a bit. Now, some areas maybe slip around a little too much, and I'm gonna have to tone that down. But overall, what it does is it avoids the feet just feeling like they hit the ground and then just stick until they lift again. There's always like these little shifts and wiggles in them. And personally, I really like that. I love to get those little details in the feet just because it makes the whole character just feel a little bit more alive. Now right here, I think I can use a little bit of toe twist right there. Let's actually zero these out because I don't want the foot to have a bend to it. Toe twist. Or, So the thing that I'm thinking of here is which controls do I want to deal with? I could just deal with the rotations, I guess. Whenever you're animating things like feet, you're going to have to try and think of, okay, which controls do I need to worry about and which ones do I want to use in this situation? So right now I want it to feel like he's pushing off of his big toe. Right there. So something along those lines. So that's pretty much the feet right there. So this is going to allow me to know where I need to put the hips. The leg, the front leg should be straight, back leg pretty straight. So something around there should be good. The PVs, I'm really not too worried about right now. I kind of just put them where I need to, just to kind of get the pose. As I refine this more, I'm going to do a PV pass where I kind of clean them up quite a bit and simplify them so that I'm not having to animate them frame by frame. If you look at the PVs right now, see how they kind of pop around like this over here? It's just popping around, wiggly, wiggle, wiggle. It's just a lot of motion there. And that means that as I refine this and go down into like 1s and 2s, I'm going to have to animate that PV a lot to make sure that the knee is not doing this. I don't want to do that. Once I kind of know exactly, okay, this is where the poses are going to be, I'm going to create a simple pass on those PVs where I just kind of put the PV in a general location, only move it when I need to, and that way the knees are much more stable. I avoid any wiggles and pops. So that's going to be later. For now, just trying to get the poses where I want them to be. Now his weight shift here is all wrong. He needs to shift his weight over onto this leg. Now also make sure you're looking at your shot camera. You do not want to turn that off and just kind of ignore it. Now the big thing that I want in this pose is kind of a lean to screen left with the character. Something like this, because I want that energy to contrast where he, as we go, I might exaggerate this even more this way. We'll see. So we get that kind of lean screen right. He throws, and that momentum brings him screen left. So that's what I'm aiming for. We definitely don't want to throw the character totally out of balance for it. But we'll see what we can do. Okay. Hips. Let's see. Now that I'm in the walk here, I'm trying to think of how I can simplify my life a little bit and exaggerate the what's the word I'm looking for? Simplify the rotations that I'm going to be dealing with. And this is something I might be changing later on in previous poses. But the thing that's going to be happening right now is during a walk, you've got the hips doing this side to side motion. And if I'm doing that, that means that I'm going to then have to counter the spine for every step, which not necessarily a bad thing, but a walk is pretty simple and I don't want to overcomplicate it if I don't have to. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is just keep the cog here facing in a general forward position. And then just use the hip controls to move the character forward. Or sorry, to rotate the actual hips. So I'm just going to push the cog facing and pointing in the direction that he's going. Right around there. And then use the hip control here to actually get the hips in place. Let's see. He's definitely going to be leaning forward here, so I do want that in place. Just use the cog for a general full lean. Okay. And then let's zero out the rotate Z. No. Because I do want to... Okay. So this is just me thinking what's going to be easiest. I want the whole body to have a lean here, which I could do with the rotate Z here. I could also do with the body rotations, but I feel like that's just going to be more tricky to get a full body lean. Let's see, that arm is going to twist forward, and then the body. Let's twist it that way. So we've got that nice reversal. And we'll get that nice contrapposto. So yeah, let's get rid of that. No, I actually do like it. There's going to be a lot of going back and forth on certain things. That's okay. When you're animating, you do not have to have the right answer right away. You do not have to be able to go, yep, this is the thing I'm going to do, and it's going to stay like that, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. That's exactly what's going to happen. If you change your mind 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times or 10 times, just trying to figure out what the heck am I going to do? Which controls should I use? That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. As long as you're thinking through what you need, that's the important bit. So right there, I was just finding that I was dealing with a lot of rotations, so I wanted to zero that out just to make sure that I'm not getting any counter motions in that hand there. Okay, now this arm here is gonna come forward. Let's tuck that in just a little bit. Something like this, and then get that head direction in place. And my eye controls, doop. Let's get that back over here, because he's looking back to where he was before. I'm actually just going to quickly copy the face pose from over here, just so I have the open eyes there. And the big thing with the head, that angle is so bad. The big thing with the head right now is, or the face I should say, is that I really don't care about trying to get anything. Why is there? Oh yeah, that's translate there. I don't want to get anything super complex. The main thing that I want is just, the eye is following there. The main thing I want is some placeholder so that I'm not dealing with a blank expression. That's really the only thing. If I'm dealing with a blank expression, it just makes it harder to kind of get a feel for the character. So I just want something so I can get a good idea of, okay, what should the character be feeling here? And then I can refine that face later. So essentially I don't want that. That's boring. That, even if it's just a very basic expression, at least it gives me an idea of how he's feeling. Trying to push the clavicles here quite a bit. I'll definitely tone it down later. But right now what I want is the feeling of contrast from the previous point. Yeah, that's good. So here what I'm aiming for, and you can kind of see in the reference here, is as he comes down here, his head is going down, leading the action right there, as his hand goes up. As he throws right here, see how his head comes back up right there? That's what I'm trying to get here, that feeling. So right through here, I could actually push it more, honestly. Really get that head to lead downwards. Right there. Get that going down. I could push the neck control even more. So we feel that lead in there. And then poof, it goes up. So as the bat goes up, his head goes down. His body kind of goes down. As the bat goes down, it comes back up. And we build that nice contrasting motion in there. Okay. I feel like this hand could just be a little bit more relaxed. At this point, it just kind of feels a little weird right there. So I'm going to go for a more relaxed pose. Nope, that's definitely not the relaxed pose that I want. I want just a simple relaxed pose. Something more like that. Having a pose library is really nice. Again, a pose library is not there to get you the final animation and just like, hey, well, that hand is done. Haha. It's there just to get a quick idea. And then I can either build off of that pose or create something totally new that will fit this situation much better. There we go. So with that, let's get the bat onto the ground here. Now, one thing with this bat is at this point, I'm kind of just going to forget about it. It's on the ground. Let's see where. Yeah. It's going to be on the ground here. Let's actually just copy it to the next pose right there. So it goes over and probably a little bit more over here. And then I'm just going to not animate it. It's going to sit there for the rest of the shot, at least for this first pass. Later on, if I have some time for this first blocking pass, what I'll do is animate it on its own. I'm not going to worry about matching it to the keys of the character and have it bounce. Because at this point, they're disconnected. It can start doing its own thing. And I don't have to match the keys that my character has, or the timing that my character has. And that'll just allow me to more easily block that in. I could also key in or use simulation. So just have the bat leave the hand and then simulate it so that it hits the ground and bounces and I get all of that cool stuff and it's done. We'll see. We'll see what we end up getting. Now his pose here is definitely out of balance. That's fine because your character doesn't always have to be perfectly in balance. Your character can have moments where they throw themselves out of balance, as long as I make sure that he catches his balance afterwards. That'll be fine. Now, with that said, we're going to see. Maybe I'll add this next pose in, which the next pose is going to be the passing pose here on 73. Maybe I'll add this in here, and I'll find that, you know what? It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good that he was so far out of balance before. If that's the case, I'll fix the previous pose. But I'd rather try it out. If it doesn't work out, at least we tried. Now, here we have the character moving forward. And we get the passing pose right here. I'm going to start using a few of the spline poses in here just to help me speed things up in terms of some posing. But as I'm doing that, I can always just copy to previous poses here. Now you'll notice that I'm using Animbot for this. So for example, I want the eyes to be where they were looking before. Use the Animbot plugin, click, there it is. If you don't have Animbot, you just kind of take your previous pose, frame 67, middle mouse click to 73, hit S to set a key. It's the same thing. So I want that to hold, and I had some attributes selected. There we go. And actually, the reason it's not holding here is because my follow align is set to 0.8 there. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that's why. It was always set to 0.8, except for here. Make sure that my values aren't changing horribly over time. Okay, so we've got that in place. Erase his head, turn it back a little bit. The face here, definitely the expression needs to stay the same as before. Yeah, there you go. Very simple expression, but hey, that's all we need. Now for the rest, let's just get that in there. This foot stays the same. Oh, sorry, selected the wrong foot. This foot stays on the ground. This foot is passing it. So I just want to make sure there's no foot roll in here. Everything else is good. And at this point, it's a walk cycle. For anyone who's done a walk cycle, you know the drill. It's contact down, passing up, contact. Nothing new. So get those hips up here. I still want him to be slightly out of balance there. And again, we're using the hip control now to get the side to side of the hips. So the cog here, I essentially just want it to kind of flow along the path of motion here. So there's going to be some rotation, but it's just going to be a smooth curve right through here. So I'm going to be refining that as we go. And this way, I'm not dealing with a ton of counter motion through all of this. Okay. He's still got that forward lean to the walk. And this is definitely quite a forward lean, but hey, we can exaggerate. There's nothing wrong with exaggeration. Let's take the spine here. And for the spine, I'm actually going to zero it out. And then kind of repose it. I do this quite often, actually. Even in a moment like this where the character is kind of, what's the right word? Resetting, or not resetting. Like, what's the word I'm looking for? The character is kind of transitioning between two poses, right here and then over here. And I could just use the breakdowns that I was given that Maya already kind of built in for me. But the thing with that is, am I building the pose the way it should be? Or am I just putting in the pose and the keys based on what I already had? And for me, at least in this first blocking pass, I don't want to get caught into the cycle of, well, I had this before, I guess I have this now, and that'll do. Because maybe I was wrong on the previous pose. Maybe this pose here didn't have the right rotations. Maybe I screwed up and I didn't notice it yet. So I don't want to build on a mistake. As I go into refining and typically like blocking plus early splining, you'll start to notice those areas and then I can fix them right away. I'm not going to try to just build off of something just because that's what I had before. I want to make it as good as it possibly can be on each frame. Okay. So let's get this hand in place here. Let's see. I'm going to have to think of the arc I want for the hand. Because it's in IK, you really need to think of your arcs. Trying to think of the silhouette. I don't want that arm to be positioned right here where it's situated right in the middle of his, or his lower arm is right in the middle of his upper arm. So trying to think of my silhouette here. How can I exaggerate that? I want the hand, since it was out here, I want it to arc in right through there. Maybe a little bit more right there. The other arm is pretty good where it is. I think I could push the elbow back a little bit more just to get a more diagonal line through there. And then maybe drag it a little bit more. Now right here between these, see how that hand just kind of feels linear? If I just look at the poses, it feels like this is kind of right in the center or very close to. So I'm going to exaggerate that down a little bit so it favors the lower pose. So even in blocking and even without like a motion trails or anything like that, I'm looking at my spacing, I'm looking at my arcs, trying to get an idea of how I can make those better. This clavicle can stay lower here, and this one's going to raise up. I want the shoulder to kind of lead the action here. Now here we've got kind of this shimmy in the shoulders. See that? I don't want that too much. So maybe let's bring this back up here so we don't get too much of a kind of wiggle in there. And I can drop it here. So now we have this shoulder lead on this screen left side, and then it'll drop on the screen right side afterwards, and we don't have that swap and wiggle. Now, don't be too afraid of things like that, because we do need to put more keys in there and more breakdowns. But at least for now, I'm going to try to minimize it a little bit. Okay. So that's that pose. Pretty simple. Let's go to the next one. Is this my first blocking pass? Yes. So this is very first blocking pass. I did do a previous pass, and I did a... I don't want to call it a blocking pass, but I guess it is a previous pass, layout pass, the first one that I did. I did two separate layout passes, essentially, to get an understanding of how my character should move. So yeah, this is blocking pass number 1. So here the head is starting to turn back. Let's get the blink in here, just so I know that the characters should be blinking in this section anyway, so let's just get it in there. And the reason they're blinking is because they're doing a change of direction on the head. And even though his eyes are closed, I don't want him looking straight at camera right here. So I'm trying to push the angle of the head either a little bit more forward or a little bit more back here. And trying to favor that. And the thing that I'm looking at is his ears and the sides of his nose to see how close I am to being facing the camera. And you can definitely ask. So the way I got the silhouette camera view here is I just took my panels here and I went to layouts, 3-pane layout, and I did a split left. So we have big pane here, split left panes on the left side there. Then on this panel here, I just went to perspective and selected my camera view right there. So normally it would be something like a front view or a side view. So I just have two of the same view right here. These are both the same camera. But because of that, I can now set one camera, for example, into wireframe or shaded or lit and textured, or in this case, I turned on the lights, and since I have no lights, it shows the silhouette. Now you'll notice that I don't see the ground plane. Well, the reason for that is I turned on isolate select. So this is how it should look. You can see the ground plane is there and the character is hidden. If I had like a background or a set, it would just be all black. So in order to see just the character, I just selected the bits that I want to see. So the baseball bat, the hat, and the character right here. So you can see all of that selected. And I clicked on this button right here, which is isolate select. It only shows this selection. You can also get to this by going to show, isolate select, view selected, same thing. And now in this camera, which is the same as this one, they're the same camera, I now have just the silhouette. And as I play through, I can now watch both. I can watch my shot camera, I can watch my shot silhouette, and I can watch my main action right here in my perspective view and tumble around. So I'm seeing everything that's important to me all at once. Now, normally when I'm doing this, I also have the graph editor open so that I can see, for example, here, like, what the heck is going on there? Ugh. Is that supposed to happen? Why is there a wiggle right here? Unfortunately, because I'm streaming, normally I would have my multiple monitors to split things on so I can see things clearly. I want all of you to see things clearly, and I want all of this to be very clear. So I don't have my graph editor open because it makes everything so small. But yeah, that's my typical workflow. I don't always do the silhouette here, but because the character is dealing with a baseball bat and there's all of this kind of swinging and twisting, I really wanted to make sure that my silhouette is clear and that I'm not forgetting about it. So that's why I'm having it open here. For most shots, I just look at the silhouette based on just the view here and just make sure the silhouette looks good there. Let's see. How long did it take you to get used to animating with a stylus versus a mouse? Probably about 2 weeks. It took about 2 weeks to get used to it. And when I first started, I hated it. I absolutely hated animating with a stylus versus a mouse. I had always been used to using mice. It was more comfortable for me. I did not like animating with a stylus or using a computer with a stylus. It's just like, ugh, no. So what I ended up doing, because I knew it was good or it was better for my health, and in the end, I was going to be better overall with it. And my hand was already hurting quite a bit from using a mouse. I was already starting to get repetitive strain in my hand. So I needed to change. So what I ended up doing was I just took my mouse and I put it in a drawer at the far end of the house and just like unplugged it, put it in the drawer and locked it away and forced myself to only use the tablet for 2 weeks, regardless of what I was doing. Whether I was animating or whether I was just using my computer, normal day-to-day stuff, I only used the tablet for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, I actually felt like the tablet was more comfortable and easier to use than a mouse. When I took my mouse back and it's like, yeah, let's get back to using the mouse, it's like, it's okay. It just doesn't feel as comfortable anymore. So that was me. Is a little extreme, but in the end, I am so thankful that I did it because my arm health and my hand health definitely improved quite a bit because of it. Okay. I think we've got that pretty much done. This pose, we didn't have to do too much because we had already built it out quite a bit. I feel like this elbow's a little low though. Okay. So we've got that in place. Let's go to our next key here. Let's see. Is it possible to do a playblast of the camera view and the Scylla view at the same time? Not at the same time. So not like in one playblast. You'd have to do 2 separate playblasts and then combine them together using something like Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve. But I can playblast each one separately and have a silhouette view and or a silhouette playblast and a shot playblast. 78, 84. That's my next one. Okay, we're definitely going to be doing a lot here because we've got a lot of hair to fix. This key is going to require a lot of tweaking. So let's set a key here. It's horrible. This whole pose is horrible. The arm is in a terrible place. The feet are just a mess. Ugh. Everything about this is just awful. So this is exactly why you need breakdowns and you need set keys. Because if we let Maya do too much work, and this is an extreme example because we have so few keys, but even when you're dealing with just like going from 4s to 2s, so you're putting just one extra key, one extra breakdown, this is why it's important, because a lot of times, and this goes for any program, if you're letting a program animate for you, essentially what's going to happen is you're going to get garbage. And I'm not saying that it's always bad, but in most cases, it's going to not be what you want. It's just going to be the in-between. It's literally just the mathematical values that are in between these 2 keys. We are not trying to do mathematical values here. We are trying to do art. We are trying to do poses. We are adding character in here, not mathematical values. So breakdowns, setting keys, making sure that things are happening the way you want them to happen is extremely important. Once again, taking this cog. Now here you'll notice the hand is going crazy. It's because it's caught between a constraint, whether to be constrained or not, as well as being caught between FK and IK. There we go. At least fix that. Let's see. There's a question here. An off-topic question. Do we have an Anibot demo in our channel? I would love for you to walk us through because I would love your explanations. I did do an Anibot demo a long time ago. They have updated quite a bit. But Anibot has a lot of cool resources. They've got a YouTube channel as well. If you go to the Anibot website, they've got a page that just goes over every single tool and explains how to use it. But I should do another demo at some point in the future here because, well, it's a great tool. And I honestly don't use it nearly as much as I should. I will admit that. The big reason being I do a lot of demos for students. And it's actually, yeah, okay. I do a lot of demos for students, and I want to show how you can do things without having to invest in a tool. And because of that, I then get used to not using a tool on my day-to-day. But it is a wonderful, wonderful tool. His hair is back. So already we're starting to get that hair refined quite a bit just by doing that. Now the cap. Let's turn on the cap controls here, because we're actually going to start using them now. Let's see, is there a constraint going on? Just looking for what is... Okay, it's the offset control here. There we go. Zero that out. Boop. Okay. Okay, here it is. Our key is sliding. 84. Oh yeah, that's why. So one thing to always be careful of is if you have an attribute selected here, you'll only be copying that one attribute when you're using certain hotkeys. And I keep forgetting about that because that's not a behavior that was in older versions of Maya. And I'm still not used to it. Now here, the hat will definitely need some deformations to like have it pull off of his head properly. I'm not going to worry about that right now. And honestly, with my camera the way it is, we probably might not need to deal with it at all. So this is a bonus for us right there. We'll see. I don't want to not do it just because of laziness and go, and don't have to worry about it. But at the same time, if I don't have to deal with it, that's not a bad thing. So let's see here. Let's get that hand pose into a grab. So open up our studio library. Let's see. I noticed my wrist gets tight after a long session of animating, and I'm considering getting Wacom Cintiq. I already use a vertical mouse, but I want to try using a stylus. If you're looking to invest in a tablet, Cintiqs are great. That's what I'm using right now. But don't feel like you have to use a Cintiq. They are expensive. If you want to look into other companies, there's Huion, there's XP Pen. Those are really good from what I've heard. I haven't used them personally, but I know students who have and really like them. So if you don't want to invest in a full Cintiq, especially if you haven't tried it before and don't know if you're going to like it. The other thing is you don't need a screen display. A lot of animators that I know actually don't like animating with a screen display. And for a long time, I was the same way. For most of my career, I actually use an Intuos 3 tablet, which is just like a desktop tablet, no screen. It essentially just replaces the mouse. And I loved it. I absolutely loved that little tablet. I used it for years. And it worked great. And in many ways, I actually do miss it compared to my Cintiq. The reason I'm using my Cintiq now is I also do a lot of sculpting, or not a lot. More. I should be doing more. I want to do more. But I do some sculpting, drawing, stuff like that. And in those cases, the Cintiq is really nice. I love it for that. But for animating, just a regular tablet is really, really good. And less money. So you can definitely try that out as well if you want. But if you want to go straight into a display tablet, again, there's different options. Overall, though, I do find it's a worthwhile investment. Especially for your wrists. As animators, we're using our hands a lot. So anything you can do to help protect that and make sure that you're working in a healthy way is very, very important. Now here I do want to reverse the spine a little bit more. Let's zero this out again. You'll notice me doing that a lot, reversing the spine. Okay. Oh, what type of mount do I use for my Cintiq? I'm just using the Cintiq, the table mount, or not the table mount, the, I forget the name of it. It's just the big mount that you attach the Cintiq to and just sits on your desk, not an arm or anything like that. And that works really well for my setup. My desk can't really I can't attach a whole arm that lets me swing the tablet around and all of that to it. So I've just got the sitting mount. And it works really well. I will admit I'm not the biggest fan of it, mostly because it doesn't give you a lot of degrees of freedom. I was expecting it to be able to, like, if I want to raise it up a little bit like that, I could, and then it locks off, and like I could just move it to wherever I need and lock it. No, it's either all the way down or all the way up. And that's it, those two positions there. Which I guess in general is all you really need. But for my setup, it just wasn't right. It's like, if only I could get like halfway between these 2 points, then it would be just perfect. So yeah, if possible, I would have preferred to go with the arm mount, because Cameron has one like that, and for his Cintiq it's great because he can just bring it closer, bring it further, spin it around, get it to whatever height he wants. It's really nice. So if you're going to invest in a mount, that's probably the way I would go if you've got the room and space for it. Looking at my silhouette here. I'm trying to get a nice reversal in this line where we have this bend on this side, screen left, and then here we have the bend on the right side and the straight here. So that's kind of what I'm visually looking for in here. Oops, I don't want to use the IK. No. I could actually turn off the IK spine just to help myself so I don't have to deal with multiple controls, but that's fine for now. And you'll notice the hand grabbing is very basic. I'm not putting a lot of thought into it. That's because as I go through, I might just constrain this or change it. As long as it's kind of in the right position, I'll be fine. First pass blocking, I don't have to worry too much about it. Okay. I think that works pretty well. I think I want the neck a little bit more forward though. Let me zero this out here. Make sure the neck isn't getting too many twists and turns in it. Okay, and then this leg needs to go much further back. I want a little bit of a line there, but right here it's creating this kind of weird zigzag. I don't like that. I want the screen right side to have the visual complexity. So just trying to think of how I can make my silhouette and my poses just read a little bit more clearly. Okay, so we've got that. I actually maybe want this arm to swing forward a little bit more. So we kind of feel that change here as it starts to swing. Maybe straighten the elbow a little bit so we can feel that drag in the arm as it goes forward right here. So you feel that little bit of whoop, drag as the elbow goes forward, and then it'll bend here and we'll get that bigger contrast. So we're getting there. We're getting that walk to feel a little bit more like a walk now. It's not just feeling it pops forward. Okay, next pose. We've got another pose in here, which is going to be the extreme hat raise. Because right now, if we just go with our passing poses, our next passing pose is going to be over here. And we'll have the feeling of the walk pretty much in place. But the thing that we're going to be missing is what happens to the hat. He was reaching for the hat over here and then poof, it's gone. We need to be able to show what's happening here. So I do need one more pose, and this is going to be frame 67 here. Now, once again, I can just select everything, set a key, and once again, we need to make sure that we reset certain things. So this foot here, this should be flat on the ground. The hips, pretty much in the right spot. This is one thing I do like about spline blocking is as I'm moving forward, because everything's kind of sliding forward between my two poses, when I set a key, the hips have already moved forward for me. So I don't have to start from this position and then, okay, how far should the hips move at this point? This far, this far. It kind of gets me most of the way there. And then I can just make some small tweaks. So spline blocking, you don't want to rely on your splines. And when I say that, what I mean is you don't want your spline blocking to what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to just like set a key and then go, haha, there's my pose. You're definitely changing it all the time. But what it does allow you to do is more easily get some stuff for free. Some like forward motion sometimes, or sometimes it's just a little bit of sideways motion. Or in this case, like the foot, it's already moved me forward just a little bit. So I've kind of got something to work with. Thanks for the reminder. Okay. So, save the scene. Okay. Let's get the hips in here. Okay. Straightening the arm just a little bit so we have that contrast into the next moment here. Let's see. Do you have everything on your key blocking poses or just the controls you're using? Just the controls I'm using because these are really just the controls I'm going to have. So I don't need to really key everything, at least not at the moment. Maybe I'll raise this up just a little bit. Yeah, but I do key pretty much all the controls on each frame. I want to make sure that I'm not accidentally missing anything or just animating one thing at a time. For example, I could just key only the hand going up and lifting the hat and leave everything else alone. If I'm in stepped mode or if I'm blocking in this pose to pose method, if I switch to a different frame, I am keying everything and posing everything. I do not want to skip out on any aspect of the process there. Okay. Now here I have to think, which controls am I going to be using? The hat gets unconstrained here, and I'm going to have to make a switch. So I'm going to just zero out my other controls here. And now I'm just going to use this main control to animate the hat. Technically the hat's going to be constrained to the hand right here, but I'm not going to set up my constraints just yet. And honestly, just looking at this, I'm going to have to move my camera out slightly. So we're going to have to make a small camera tweak right through here. That's fine. We'll get our blocking done and then we can make that tweak. Trying to get a nice twist in the body, but not twist it so much that we then don't see anything. I could exaggerate it quite far. And we can really feel that throw. But is that too much? I feel like it could be too much. I want that shoulder to come back. Essentially, I want it to feel like his shoulder blades are pinching together right here. So we feel that, and to exaggerate there, that pull back. Everything in his body is going into this throw. I don't want to just be the arm to flap around. Okay, let's push the hips a little bit. Get that twist in there. I feel like I could push the spine a little bit more. Now I could also push it using this control here, but I want the chest to really feel stretched. Just get a nice strong line in there. This is the nice thing with having the silhouette view on, is it really makes it easy to kind of get an idea of, okay, wait, am I getting that nice strong line? What am I seeing visually? Versus getting caught in the details and the colors and everything else. And let's actually turn off our 2D zoom so we can kind of see where it is out here. Trying to think where I can put this so we can still see it visually in silhouette without losing too much. You can also push the head forward quite a bit there. Make sure I take the face controls and copy them to what they were before. Okay. Let's see how this feels. No, that neck motion is going a little too far right here. I want it to go forward, but I don't want to feel like he's doing some sort of weird pigeon neck thing. Okay, let's just leave it like this for now and go to the next frame and then see how we can create the flow between them. Okay, so here, see how the hat just kind of feels like it slides off? I don't want that. Definitely not. Now, another way I can animate this hat, just if you're trying to figure out like what's the best way to do something like this. I could animate with this main control here, that way I can just move it around. Or once the hat is kind of pulled off of the head, this is the root control. So what I can do is I can just zero this out essentially. Let's kind of just get it in the direction of where he's going. Then I can use this control to actually move the hat. And what this gives me is I have this offset control, which allows me to change the pivot point of the hat. So the easiest way to kind of see this is I'm going to select my main control, go to display, transform displays, and I'm going to turn on local rotation axes. You'll notice that it gives me this little point right here. That's the pivot point of this control. Now using the offset control, I can move this so that the pivot point is right along the brim right there, maybe a little higher right around there. And now as I move this control and rotate the hat, it's rotating from that point. So I can just put that point where he's going to grab it. And again, we'll set up constraints and we'll do all of that to refine this. But at least for now, what this gives me is a very quick way to animate this a little bit more clearly. So I can push a little bit more drag right here, or I could have it flip around a little bit more. Yeah, something like that for now. But you can see that's a little bit easier, and this is just the root control. It just stays where it is, just like, or sorry, yeah, root layout, just like this one over here. So different ways of approaching this. No right or wrong way, just whatever's going to make your life easier, essentially. And when you use the cog or FK hip, it depends. That's honestly the biggest or the clearest answer is it really depends on what you're doing, when you're doing it, and what's going to be easiest for that situation. For me right now, during this walk, it's easier to use the FK hip to get most of the hip twist motions and just use the cog to essentially create the directionality of the walk. So that way the cog isn't doing this all the time. It's just going around, because he's not walking in a straight line. He's walking kind of along a curve. And I want that cog control to just follow that curve, essentially. And what this will make it, how this will make it easier is his whole body is following this curve. And now I can just use the chest controls and the hip control to make all the extra little bit of extra motion. And the rigging for the cap, that is the typical rigging that I use for any prop that I work with. If ever I'm rigging a prop, I always set it up so that I can adjust the pivot points like that. Because as you can see, being able to just twist or adjust that pivot point can make your life so much easier. And I don't want to have a situation where I am fighting a pivot point, or just like, I need to adjust that rotation where it's in his hand. Okay, rotate it, translate it, rotate it, translate it, rotate it, translate it. It's a pain. And it's a very simple setup. I've talked about it a lot on the stream. So for anyone who hasn't seen those and wants to kind of figure out how that's done, I've demoed it before. And I actually did a demo on how to set up the baseball bat rig not that long ago. Which that rig essentially allows me to, so this one over here, it's got the same basic controls, but it also allows me to have the hand hold on and then just twist and slide up and down the bat, and it just makes life a lot easier. Okay, so let's get that expression here. At this point, I can open the eyes a little bit more. And let's have him look up. I feel like I've lost the expression a little bit. Let me copy it from over here. I want to keep that frustration in his face. And for some reason, I feel like I've lost it a little bit. Oops. Make sure I don't key his head control. There we go. That feels better. The brows felt like they were kind of going up a little too much there. Trying to think of which eye direction is helping me the most here. Okay. Let's get that hip in place. Okay, comes through, throws the hat. I definitely feel like I need another breakdown here. It's the same situation as the baseball bat right here. I'm not getting the visual dynamic of the character swinging or throwing. It's just going from extreme to extreme. And because of that, we're not getting the idea of how is he doing this. It's the same thing with the walk. I could just go from here to here. There's 2 keys. I've got my 2 contacts. Great. That's really all I need. But I'm missing, how is he doing it? Is he really peppy in his walk? Is he slouching in his walk? And 1 extra key makes a big difference. Like right here, we can see that as he takes that step, he goes up and stretches up versus just kind of gliding along or sliding along. So that's definitely something that I want to push in there. The other thing I want to do is he's twisting this way, and now I should twist back the other way. Or actually, no, this way. Okay. This arm is feeling a little off. There we go. Now here, this is a terrible silhouette. The elbow is lining up right with the arm here. And it's making it so I can't tell which arm is which. So let's do something more like that. That's a clear silhouette there. Make sure the walk's working from the front view. There's too much of a change here. So as I go between these two poses, I can't tell what I'm supposed to be looking at. The body is swinging forward. The arms are switching places. It's too much. Like if I look at this, look at how little the body moves. And we instead just get the arms swinging through. That's the feeling I want. And in my animation, I would try to switch that so that I can put more focus on one arm versus another. So let's try to get that in there a little bit. I'm gonna bring that body forward just a bit more here. That way it doesn't have to go so far back over here. The other thing that's happening is he's swinging over this way. Let's kind of bring him back a little bit so that he's leaning still the other way a little bit. That'll just help his head not feel like it shrinks down as much. I think I could bring his hips back a little bit more so he doesn't go quite so far forward. Okay. Let's get that spine to bend back a little bit more. Twist a little less. I don't want to lose the dynamic feeling of the walk, but I do want to make sure that we're not feeling this pop between those two poses. That's the big thing. Okay, I think I've got it pretty much in place. I feel like the back leg is a little too high, so just tone that down there. I can also twist the hips a little bit more. Okay. Let's see. Sometimes the reference videos have different frame rates. How should I animate with those different frame rates? You can do it in a few different ways. If you want to really follow your reference, you can convert your reference and switch it to a 24 frames per second video. So you can use that. Just Handbrake is a great converter. It's free. So you could use a program like that to convert to 24 frames per second. You could just do the math. That's what I typically do. So you don't have to be super accurate because we do tend to retime things anyway. So as long as it's close enough, just kind of thinking it through. And if it's, for example, an action takes 30 frames at 30 frames per second, well, it should take 24 frames at 24 frames per second. So you could do something like that. Let's see. The shoulder needs to be higher. Or you could just use your reference as a guide, where you just kind of look at the poses and then create your own timing from it, and you're not using the timing of your reference at all. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways. The easiest typically is to retime your reference, especially if you're starting out. That way you can have at least something that you can follow along with and match a little bit. Is this workflow layout that you usually use just with the graph editor on a second monitor? Yeah. So typically I would have the graph editor here. Actually, typically I would have the other two cameras on my other monitors. That way I could have my graph editor right here where I can use it with my pen. So normally these two views would be on the other monitors. Yeah, DaVinci Resolve is another way you can retime reference. Any program that you can use to edit the video would work well. Okay. That's feeling better. Now, I could tweak the arms here a little bit more, but one thing I do want to do is go to the next pose and see how they're going to flow here. So, actually, this is interesting. See how this hand here, right there in silhouette, when I go to the next frame, it's almost like it's holding in place. If you look at my camera, it's actually the other hand. I'm matching my silhouettes. That's definitely something I'm going to want to avoid. But once again, we've got another key in the middle here, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. So let's go into our last pose here. And before I do that, I'm just going to go and copy my facial expression here. And the eyes. I'm just going to put them on this last frame here. Those poor eyes. There we go. So something like that. This way, when I put my breakdown, the face is already going to be in place, and I'm not going to have to put it in again. Okay, so next breakdown here is 99. This is going to be my passing pose, and you can see it's pretty much kind of in place already. So I'm just gonna take this, set a key. Okay. And the hat is just off screen. It doesn't matter right now. So let's get this pose in here. Okay, that should work. Just get the height in there, get the balance in place. And I'm actually just going to move this control. Leave it where it is here. And then just animate this. There we go. Let's actually move it even further forward. Okay. So we've got that. I just didn't want the layout control here moving around. It's going to cause issues. Okay. So let's get the hips in place. His balance is going to go over that supporting leg. Walk cycle mechanics. Nothing new there, just more of the same. If you've done a walk cycle, you know what's going on. it's one of those things where when you learn walk cycles, especially like if you're taking Animation Mentor, you learn about them in class 1. All those mechanics you learn about, they still apply. So you just keep applying them as you go through your career. Let's see. We've got a big weight shift here, and that's fine because he's taking a big wide step right there. I might tweak that later on. We'll see. So if I feel like, this is just too much, what I'll end up doing is just pulling his foot further over here, and then I can just adjust the last few frames. Right now, I do want to keep that because I blocked it in for a reason. And I don't want to just make a change and just kind of lose something that that could be something interesting. Because it makes it different. It's not just a walk cycle. He's really taking this big wide step after he's thrown the cap, which could be like a fun weight shift in there. Okay. Let's see. I feel like his left arm is popping very far forward here and then just kind of bouncing back. Let's look at the reference and see the feel we get there. Yeah, same thing. That's not a bad thing. The difference though is if you look at his right arm, it doesn't really move. He throws and then it almost just stays in place. Whereas mine, it's doing the same thing, but it feels locked off. And I'm getting kind of a confusing silhouette right there, which I'm not a fan of. Let's see. Now I'm not going to change it too much here. The reason being, I don't want to make big changes when I've only got 3 keys in here to describe this arm motion. Once I add more keys, that switch is going to make much more sense. If I've only got a key here, and a key here, of course it's not going to make sense because it's going to pop, pop, pop. It's not going to read. Once you add a couple more breakdowns, then you can make that choice of, wait, do I really want it to go back and forth, or maybe do I want to clean it up? So I don't have enough information to make a proper choice for this arm motion. But what I can do is notice how both hands have the same silhouette. They've got that one finger out, other finger's curled. And what that does is adding that visual confusion, because as it's going back and forth, like right here, that hand has the same silhouette, even though it's a different hand. So what I can do is just change the silhouette of one of the hands, like that. And that's a little too much. Where'd that bend come from? Let me undo that. So I can just, let's see. There we go, that's better. Change that silhouette there. And now we feel the different hands there. Because the silhouette is now different, we can feel which hand is which. There's just a little difference, but it helps. So there's different ways we can make things read a little bit more clearly. Okay, that's not too bad. And you can see now that walk out definitely feels a lot more clearer just by adding those passing poses in there. So we're getting there. Now I do want to tweak this last pose here. Just make sure that I've got all my controls in place here. Okay. The face is there. The head definitely needs a better angle. Okay. So I'm just looking at it from a different angle here. I'm looking at it from the perspective view, just seeing if anything stands out. Definitely something right here is feeling off in his walk. If you look at the shot camera, he's moving forward, great. But right here, in the perspective view, he just kind of freezes in place. Something's weird. And I think it's the hips here. That's a little bit better. They were going a little too far. As much as I did like that lean here. Okay. That's a little better. So there we go. So, and what software is this? This is Maya, Autodesk Maya. So let's save this. And what else do we need to do? Well, we need to add those 3 or 4 more breakdowns. We need one here, one here, ideally one here, just because this is just not the clearest. And then I would put one more right here probably. It would be kind of nice to add more breakdowns in the walk here as well. So we might add 6 more. We'll see. Let's just hit play and just see what we've got right now. Let's get this out of the way. Yeah, it's getting there. It could be a little clearer. Especially on the hat throw. Of everything, the hat throw is the least clear. So let's get those in there right away. I'm actually going to start with this one because it's probably going to be one of the easiest ones. So let's just go through here. And the breakdown I'm going to put, let's look at my reference. This is going to be, as he takes a step here, I want to see if there's any point that I can use as a guide. Like, is there any important information? Like the moment that his foot leaves the ground, that's actually a pretty good one right here. So frame 47, his foot's on the ground. 48, his foot's in the air. So by putting a key on frame 47, I'm going to be able to add in some very crucial information that's just going to make things a little bit easier for me later on. So right there, I can make sure that this foot just stays on the ground. See how it's slipping back here? So if we were to spline this out, it just kind of slides back and then goes through the air. I can make sure that that foot now pushes off the ground cleanly before going up into the air. Now, as it's doing that, let's actually make sure to pose it out. So make sure it's not cutting into the ground. As he's pushing off here, it can slide back a little because he's putting a lot of pressure on it. It's going to twist. To the air here. So I'm looking at the position right there, and that feels pretty good. Maybe a little too much. Okay. Yeah, that feels better. And then just watch that it feels like it's actually pushing off the ground correctly. He should be pushing off of his big toe, so the big toe is going to slide the least right there. Okay. So we've got that. The other foot is going to be flat on the ground here. So right here, see how it just kind of slowly contacts the ground there? We can make that a little sharper. The power of breakdowns. We can describe things better. And that's really what a breakdown is. It's just describing things more clearly. The foot's sliding a little too much here, but I'm going to refine that later. I'd rather keep this motion for now, this little bit of sliding. It's not so much that we can see it in the shot camera, so it's not going to bother me that much. But I would rather keep it in there so that I can take note of it and refine it later and get a little bit more of that polish in there. I don't want to remove it completely and then have to try and add it back in after. Okay. Now his knee is a little too straight right here, so the hips, let's see, he comes up and he pushes forward. I think I could push him a little bit further forward here, a little bit higher up. So we get a little bit more of that weight shift in there. Looking at the spacing of the hips right there. I don't want them to feel linear. And one thing I'm feeling with the hips is right here, they go straight up and then forward. I don't like that. So I should either have them start to go to the side here so we can start building in that forward motion, or exaggerate it going backwards slightly and then shift forward here. And I build that arc. I wonder if maybe I could lower it down here. I'm just watching the hips in silhouette right now, trying to see how I can push that feeling in there. And you'll notice that I'm not really looking at my reference right now. I could definitely take a look at the reference, just see what's happening in there, see if there's any elements I can put in. But I know that I had already looked at my reference before on the other poses quite a bit. And at this point, I kind of want to just get that feeling in there. And this is just a choice. There's no like rule of, okay, now you have to look at your reference, now you don't. This is just me making an artistic choice. I want to get that feeling in there. Now, if I wanted to, I could look at my reference right here and see, oops, make sure I'm not in that range there. See what's happening right here. Yeah, so he's going forward and then up. Now, to be fair, there's also a camera move that's throwing us off here. So we have to be very careful what it is we're looking at right here. So always be aware of your camera moves and anything like that. You don't want to be looking at the wrong information. I'm just going to try something right here. I'm going to lower these so that he kind of has an upwards arc here. Now I've just made it more linear. Yeah, I liked what I had before. Just seeing what happens if I keep him low here. How does that feel? And then have him push up. Right there. He swings, pushes up. That kind of feels nice. The legs are a mess. The problem with this is he's just swung the bat. There's this big release of energy, and then it just stops. All of this big energy in the swing goes away. And what I like about the old version that I had is you got the big swing here, and that energy then translates into an upwards motion right there. So we get kind of this feeling of transfer right there. And yes, you can definitely stabilize the reference video. This is something I will do quite often, depending on the reference. For this, because there's such a big camera swing, we would only be able to stabilize the front half, but it's still a good way to make sure that you're not seeing the wrong information. So yeah, stabilizing video, very good thing actually. Now here, as he's coming forward, one thing I want to do is get the bat into position, which is going to be a little bit lower right here and still kind of facing forward. So we're pushing that arc of the bat here. So you can see the tip of the bat go down and then up. And then his hand is actually going to be letting go here. So for the hand, I'm just going to find an open pose. Something maybe around here. And Studio Library just paused on me. Let's save because Maya just kind of slightly froze. So whenever that happens, it's like, okay, time to save. Let's just double check. Okay, so he's going to be pulling away, and then I can just use this control here on my kind of constraint setup to pull the hand away. And then use this one to slide it up along the length here. And we just get that nice whoop and reach right there. So this is going to make it very easy to just refine that lift up and grab. Okay. So let's save that again, just to double check. Now, how do you track the rotate X of the hips? That's tricky. Usually the rotate X of the hips is one of the hardest ones to track. And a lot of it just comes from knowing body mechanics. So if you're looking at the spine, if the spine bends forward, the rotate X of the hips typically counters that. So for example, if this character is going to bend, let's go over here, forward there, the hips are going to counter that slightly. And you're going to get that kind of bend inwards. Or I could use the hip control and make sure I only select one of them and use this. Now this doesn't always happen, but in most cases it will work like that. It's the contrapposto. So if I bend my shoulders this way, my hips will tend to counter that and balance myself out. Now, along with that, then you have the lean of the body. So I can get the hips in position there, but then the body can still lean forward or back with that same curvature, if that makes sense. So you get the curvature of the body in here, whoop, get the hips in position, whoop, and then I can have the character do this or this, and that gets me the line through there. So that's the typical way that I look for the hips, because again, that rotate X of the hips is very subtle. Usually you look at more of the angle of the body, and that's going to give you your main rotation in there. So right here, for example, I want that body, I think, to lean forward a little bit more. He feels like he's standing up a little too quickly right here. So this is where the graph editor would be really helpful, because with the graph editor, I could see my breakdowns and see, okay, which one am I favoring? So for example, this is my rotate Z right here. And let's see, make sure, there we go. This is my rotate Z, and on frame 47, I can see that my rotate Z is favoring the previous pose right here. Now, do I want to do that, or do I want to ease into my next pose? I can make those choices right here. So rotate Y, that twist, I can maybe favor it to the previous pose, or I could even overshoot a little bit. Now that wouldn't really make sense there, so let's twist this back. So yeah, for me, this is where the graph editor comes in really handy. Or like this section right here, like why is the rotate Y of the hips just stopping? That doesn't make any sense. He just did this big swing, he comes back, and then his hips just freeze? Nah. That's silly. Now I don't want to ruin what I have, because there is a reason why I did that, but I can start to clean it up a little bit right there, and then come back for a refinement pass later. Now his translate X here is definitely feeling a little off, because he steps here, he's putting his weight over there, and then he kind of just like dunk, pops here. That feels weird. Or right here, and that's definitely strange. So I'm just cleaning up my curves right now. Seeing how I can improve certain things. How does that feel? So this is why I like to have the graph editor open all the time, because it makes it much easier to fix those things right away versus finding out when you hit splines, oh shoot, something is really wiggling here. Now, right here, I definitely don't like how the character just kind of lunges forward there, so I feel like this still needs to be adjusted a little bit. There we go. Okay, so now we have that breakdown right there. It's not a huge breakdown. You can see I didn't do a ton of changes in there. It's mostly the arm, which I just realized this hand is kind of getting lost again. Let's maybe not bring it down so far. So something like that. But now we have the hand re-gripping, letting go, and then contacting again. So that's good. The wrist definitely needs to be adjusted a little bit though. Oops, not that one. Just drag that a little bit. And then let's twist it around this way. There we go. So we get the readjustment there, which is really nice. Okay, so let's get the other poses in here. We need the swing. This is probably going to be, this one and the throw are the two of the most important breakdowns that I need to get in there. Ugh, look at that hand. This is just one of the in-betweens that Maya's giving us. You can see it still looks pretty bad when I just hit splines. But we only have a few frames of baldness now, like 2. So already just that one breakdown made a huge difference. Now for this, let's put a breakdown. I want the arc of the swing in there. So I'm thinking either 23 or 24. Let's see. Now, normally what I would do for a breakdown like this is I would break it down in a way that I can break it down to 2s. So, for example, you have 27 to 33. That's 6 frames. My ideal breakdown is right in the middle, so I have 3 and 3, or I would put 2 breakdowns in here, so I have 2s and 2s. So it would be 27, 29, 31, 33. Everything on 2s. That way I can just really refine that section. The problem with this is I've got 7 frames right here. And I can't really break that down in a way that is super easy. So I have some choices to make here. I could just put some breakdowns in, just boop, right there. Or I could do a bit of retiming. So for example, this section right here, 33 to 38, this is a section with 5 right here. So I could add a frame here and remove a frame here. And now I've got everything pretty much ready to go down to 2s. And one frame, 1/24th of a second is not a huge change. But I can make it much easier to break down my poses and just kind of get cleaner animation, at least in terms of putting more keys in. So I could just do something whoop, like this. And now in this section, I've got 6s. I can just go right in the middle, 23. There we go. Nice breakdown. Or break it down into 2s right there. So this is all stuff that I'm trying to think about as I'm putting more keys in. Do I need to do that? Do I want to start retiming now? Do I need to do that right now? Honestly, I don't need to do that right now. I could. It's definitely a choice that I have. But right now, the only reason I'm putting this extra key is to help describe the motion. Not retime the motion, not start to spline things out and like really get things detailed. It's just to help describe this swing. So I just need 1 key in here. So I think I'm going to go... Let's see, I'm going to pick a pose that I feel is strong here. I think 23, or sorry, 23? No, so 23, see how it's still kind of easing right here? I think 24 is going to be a good one because that's the first motion where the bat really swings. Everything else is kind of a hold for the most part. So either 24 or 25, those are going to help describe this action. So I have to choose between those 2. 24, the body hasn't started moving yet. If you watch his head, you can really see that it's staying in place. And then 25 is when everything starts to move. So let's do 24. Just, we could debate about it all day, but let's just get that in there. And what file format are you supposed to use when importing a video as an image plane? You need to use MOV. .mov is going to allow you to bring it in as an image plane. I think maybe MP4 is supported now, but MOV is were the ones supported for the longest time. I don't use video files though. I use image sequences. So I just export everything as an image sequence. It's smaller file size and it works. So that's what I like to use. And then you can use JPEG or PNG or whichever one you want. So let's put this in here. So before I get to the swing, I want to get to the feet. So foot's peeling up. The front foot is just smushing down flat onto the ground. Okay. Side, let's turn that off. Okay. And let's favor and let's tone down the rotation as well. So right now I'm just trying to get that foot to really feel like it smashes down onto the ground here. Now, like I said, it slides a little too much here. I can refine that later, as long as I keep that in mind. The other foot works pretty well. I definitely want to tweak it a little bit, but overall, the twist is feeling pretty good. I would probably just want to make sure that it's sliding correctly. Yeah, let's do that. The knee definitely needs to lead a little bit more. That'll help with the silhouette right there. Now the swing here, this is going to be the biggest element. The way the bat is moving through. But before I get to that, let's look at the hips. What are the hips doing? The hips are starting to twist, but they don't twist that much. The big change is right here. That's when we get the big twist of the leg, twist of the whole hips. Here, the hips are straightening out a little bit. And then the forward motion, let's actually look at that as well. they go a little forward before pushing back. Essentially what's happening is he's ducking down and then pushing himself backwards. So as I'm looking at this, I'm trying to understand what is happening mechanically. So the hips come down. I want to feel that down motion. And then pops backwards. And again, this is where breakdowns are important. If I'm just letting Maya or whichever program determine how this is going to move, I'm not going to get good mechanics. I need to study what happens. So the hips go forward slightly. Probably start to come through here and then pop up. Let's see. What software do you use to convert a video to an image sequence? DaVinci Resolve would be good. It's free. Or I use Adobe Premiere because I do have the Adobe suite. I use it for work. So otherwise I would use DaVinci. It's a good program. And then, yeah, you can use TIFF, which is also a really good format. TIFF is a higher quality image, which is also really nice just to get that nice high res image if you need it. Okay, let's make sure the rotation of the hips is not going too far here. So it starts to rotate and then that's the big swing. I'm looking at my rotation manipulator to get an idea of how it's swinging there. Hip angle should probably start to straighten out there. Okay. There's a little bit of shake in the hips. This is where you'd look at the graph editor. My rotate Z. See how it's wiggling and changing right there? Ugh. Why? Why is it doing that? Do I want it to do that? Or would I want it to do this? I think in this case, he's leading with the body and then pushing in with his hip. So he's coming down and then this leg is pushing through and causing his hip to jerk to the side there. So I feel like this actually works. If I bring this up here, it's going to create the feeling that his hip is reacting too soon. So I feel like this works here. But then here, maybe I just keep this back a little longer. So this is where you have to think through your curves. You're not just smoothing curves, you're making choices on how those curves are going to affect the entire body. Now, when I do that, what's happening to the pose? Okay, not too much of a change, so that's good. Again, this is why I always animate with the graph editor open, because I can make these changes right away. Okay. And then I saw a question here. How long do I hold a frame for a more impactful punch? It really depends on the style of animation. Like if you're going for the anime style where they kind of go in slow motion and you get a hit punch and then it goes past, you could hold for a whole second if you wanted to, 24 frames. If you're just doing a quick punch, no frames at all. Just go right past. It's there, you move, go through. 1 or 2 frames, that would just add a little like and then move past. So you have to, for that, I would recommend doing a master study. What do you want it to feel like? Do you want it to feel like that anime style fight, really stylized? Do you want it to feel more like a Jackie Chan style fight? What is it that you're going for? Then you base your timing off of that. Because really, anything is correct. It just depends on the style. let's see, why are we fighting the graph editor so much when animating? Typically you're fighting the graph editor if you don't understand the graph editor, or if you so the first, let me break it down. The first area that I see people fighting the graph editor is that they just don't understand the graph editor. This is usually students who have just started out and aren't sure what the heck they're supposed to be doing. In that case, it's just understanding the graph editor and learning why the curves look the way they do and what it is that you're supposed to be looking for in the graph editor. From there, the next thing is typically you're dealing with some sort of gimbal issue. And that's the most common, like, recurring issue that you'll see with the graph editor is a gimbal or Euler. Well, not so much an Euler issue, but a gimbal issue. And a gimbal issue is when multiple rotations typically are affecting your axes in different ways, but it can also be translations. So for example, because my character is at a 45-degree angle here, if I try to move them just forward, straight through here, see what's happening in my channel box? I'm dealing with multiple axes. They're all changing. Translate X, Y, and because he's angled back, I've got all three moving the character at the same time. Which means that if I just want him to go in a straight line, right there, that's going to be tricky because I've got three axes just to do that one thing. So to avoid that and to make it easier on yourself, what you need to do is learn the ways to minimize those things. And that just takes practice and experimentation. So for example, for me, as the character is walking off this direction here, to minimize that multiple axes that I need to deal with, because he's going at a 45-degree angle kind of, and he's going to be dealing with translate X and translate Z just to make him move there. What I did was I moved my root control here right at the start of the shot so that it's pointing in the direction that he's going to walk. That way it minimizes that twist. When he's walking in this direction right here, he's actually walking in the direction of his root control, which is pretty much straight forward. So I'm going to have very little side to side and forward back dealings in that section there. So if you're fighting the graph editor, especially for those and rotations, whatnot, you need to find ways of minimizing those curves fighting each other. Now here, I do want to make sure that his head stays pretty much in place here. So I need to keep him. Now actually, let me just double check here. Which pose is it? No, it's the other two poses right here. This is where his head doesn't really move. Now, that's kind of a miscommunication there, because his head is actually coming closer to camera. It's just that forward motion. He goes forward and then towards camera. So because I'm at a 3/4 angle, a little bit more, this should be pretty good. Now let me actually look at his body. It straightens out quite a bit there. You really feel that shoulder leading the action. So that's what I want there. Shoulder leading the action. Really get that push in there. That shoulder would be much higher. This shoulder much lower. The bat and the arms are all wrong. I'm just looking at the body pose right now. Yeah, so something like that. See how that shoulder, you really feel that move forward, and then it straightens out too. So something like that. So we feel that almost pull back of the shoulders there. Okay. Now let's get the hand in place because he looks like he's in a bad play and just pretends that he's being stabbed right now. So at this point, the arm should be back. I'm just going to figure out the angle of the bat here first. It's just motion blur right now, so it's probably going to be back here. Now, as the bat comes through, if we look at the next pose here, he's going down. The arc of the bat is downwards, not just straight through. So I'm going to try and exaggerate that a little bit here and push that bat really far down so we really feel that arc right through there. And you can see how that's already making a big difference in just the readability of what we were getting before. The joy of having a good constraint system makes getting the hands through here so much easier. Now, the elbow here is in the wrong direction. He needs to tuck that elbow in right there. So really try to get that nice silhouette, that tucked in feeling right through there. Let's make sure the wrist is working here. And I think I can take the bat and swing it back. Let's see. See, I always have trouble with the 3 rotations on the shoulder and how it affects the forearm. Do you mean specifically like getting gimbal issues with it? So as you're rotating, I'm assuming the shoulder control here, so upper arm, you're moving it around, twisting it, and then as you go into splines, it's wiggling and you're having to deal with multiple attributes at the same time to get it to work. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, because there's a few different things that we could be going over. But if that's the case, there is something that you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself. So I'm just kind of pushing the arc, see what feels good. And already that, you can see how that one key makes that swing feel so much stronger now. Because the bat is holding back and just swings forward. Whereas before, if you remember, he had the bat like sticking straight out of his chest. It was already halfway through the swing at this point here. Let's push the head a little bit more. Almost drag it. When the hand is on the side of the body and I need to bring it to the front in a sweep, front body, it feels like the rotation on the shoulder work against each other. Okay, yeah, that's a very common issue. And the issue here is your rotation order. So let me just get the head in position here. I just kind of want to really tuck it in there. Maybe bring this shoulder up even more. Again, I really want that shoulder to feel like it's leading the action right through there. I wonder if maybe I can bring this in a little bit more. We can refine the arc of the bat a little bit more later. Okay, so there we go. Let's save, and then we need a breakdown right here. You can see that the bat breakdowns take a while to get in, but it's not too bad. Now here, let me just find the pose and then we're going to go over the issue that we were talking about. So here, I'm just going to put a key right in the middle. So right here on frame 30, just to keep things nice and clean. We can refine those keys later. This is just to help describe the action. And actually, I'm just trying to think. Because I'm going to break this down to 2s anyway, do I want to just start that right now? And just put a key on frame 29? Or would I put it on 31? No, 31 is just the beginning of a hold. So I would want to put it on 29 to help describe the arc of the swing. So let's do that. It'll save time later on. So let me save this, and I'm just going to open up another copy of Maya and show this here super quick. And is Maya opening another copy? There you go. Okay. So let this load in. And it looks like I probably won't have time to do feedback today if I still want to get all of this posing done here, which I do kind of want to do because it's been a long time since we've been waiting for that. I'll kind of let everyone choose. Would you rather we do maybe one more pose and then some super quick feedback? It would have to be like really quick. Essentially just like top 3 things on each shot. Or would you want to see me finish all the breakdowns and we can complete that? Okay, there we go. Got to remember where I'm going here. So we're going to bring Jules in since we were using him. I'd rather see you finish the blocking, finish the breakdowns. Okay. I need to get polls working so we can actually get a proper poll. I won't have time this weekend. I'm pretty much booked. Like, as soon as this stream ends, I'm working till probably till the next time I stream. Oh, this week is going to be busy. So unfortunately, like the moment that this stream ends, I am jumping into work, and aside from sleeping and eating, that's pretty much all of it. That's my weekend. So has my sleep situation improved? For the most part, yes. Except for Fridays. Fridays is pretty much guaranteed that I'm going to have an all-nighter, which is not the greatest. Now, before I get too distracted, let's go over the shoulder issue. So the main shoulder issue that most people run into is, let's say I'm animating here, and I want to animate this shoulder. It's going to come down here, and then it's just going to arc forward like this. Just do this kind of motion back and forth like that. And overall, you can see not too bad. If I look at my channel box, and let's actually bring in the graph editor, pretty simple, not so bad. Boop, boop. There we go. The issue now happens that if I swing the arm out a little bit and get a more natural rotation, something like this, and then let's kind of get a more natural rotation over here and swing it in, you'll notice that if I try to rotate it forward and back now, this works still fine, but as I rotate it in and out, and I want to get that kind of swing in and out, it's changing all of my curves all at the same time. And depending on the rig that you're using, this can be nightmarish. There are some rigs that I've used where just getting this forward motion to work is a nightmare. And this really changes, like if you have to have your character do something like this and swing their arm this way, this could be even worse. Or if they have to do something like this, now you'll see, like if I have to try and swat at something like that with the elbow, let's get the elbow in place up like this. This is where we're really going to feel it. So he's going to swat like that. If I try to do this, look at my attributes. All of them are moving at the same time. Just to get that same arc that I was doing before, let's look at the graph editor. Look at this. So if I try to break this down, you'll notice that all my curves are changing just for this one swing. That means that to get this nice arc here, I have to change both of these curves, and it could be a nightmare to clean up. Ugh. So why is this happening? Let me just delete the keys here. The reason it's happening is because the manipulators are not showing us the true rotations here. They are showing us an approximation of, or basically a different way of moving it based on the object's position. So right now I'm in object mode. It just lines up with the object. It would be like if I'm trying to grab my pen, I could grab it along the axis of the object and just rotate it along that object's axis. I'm just changing the way I'm gripping this. If I switch this to world mode, I am now gripping this based on the world's rotation. So if, again, my pen's at a 45-degree angle here, instead of putting my hand at a 45, I'm just gripping it like this, and my hand's still straight. That's what I'm doing. I'm just changing my grip on this object. To see your true rotations, you need to switch it to gimbal mode. I really like this song. Gimbal mode shows you the true rotations. And this is where you can see what's happening to your scene. So when I was rotating it forward and back with the y-axis, we get this. See how the y-axis doesn't change. It's just staying in place. Great, yay. If I rotate an X, ooh, what's happening here? What's happening is that as I'm rotating an X, my y-axis is changing, but the Z isn't. And if I get into a position like this, this is gimbal lock, where I've got two manipulators that have lined up. And now if I just change one at a time, we get the Y that goes up and down here, and the Z goes up and down. I've lost an entire degree of rotation, and it's gonna be a pain. So if I move Z, you'll notice that all three move together. Now there's the demo where I talk all about this stuff, so I'm gonna do it pretty quick here, but I would definitely recommend checking that out. When you're doing a big motion and you're starting to run into those issues, ideally you want to test this out before you start running into the issue. But let's say I want to do that swatting motion. So I get the arm in position here, and just doing that, I can tell, you know, I'm going to get gimbal lock right away. The moment that I try to get this swat to happen, I'm going to break my rig. So what I need to do is I need to break down what are the most important axes that I'm going to use. For this swing, it's going to be this X axis because I need to twist the arm this way. And it's going to be the Y axis. So X, or yeah, technically X and Y are going to be my most important axes here. Now, how do I get this to work? What you need to do is go into your attribute editor and switch your rotation order right here. The rotation order determines how the rotations work with each other. Whenever you have a 3-axis symbol, a system, a gimbal system, the axes that you use most should be the first and last axes. The most important ones should be first and last. The middle one is the one you use the least, because that axis is the one that's going to create the gimbal lock right here. So you can see the X axis, it's in the middle, Y, X, Z. X creates the gimbal lock. If I switch this to X, Y, Z, now X works fine. Z, the last one, controls all of them and moves all of them together. Y now creates the gimbal lock. And you can change the rotation order on the fly. You can right click on this and key selected. So set key. And now you can animate this, and you could animate like an FK IK switch at any time. So for most of my shot, I could be animating normally. They're just walking along, and then, oh, they've got a swat at something. Whew. They get into position. I swap the gimbal or the rotation order, do the swat, and then they go back into a walk. So I can do this at any time. So what I need to do here is I need to think, okay, where are my two most important, X and Y? Z should be in the middle. So I'm going to need YZX or XZY. Now, which one of those do I pick? Well, give it a try. YZX. So if I do this here, you'll see that my whole manipulator changes, and now I'm using Z because the X manipulator here is changing everything globally. That's not what I want, because now my Z axis is becoming the most important one. So let's try the other way. X, Z, Y. Now I move my X-axis like this. The Y-axis sweeps through, and I can adjust the tilt right here of the arm at any point, and I get that nice clean sweep. And then I can just adjust the Z a little bit, because I'm not doing a big like sweep like this. I'm just going like that, and I'm not going to get gimbal lock. I'm going to get a few instances where I might get a little bit of curves that I need to tweak together, but no main issues. Now, is there a pop when you instantly switch? Yes. So you can see here, if I switch, the arm is popping positions and can pop drastically. That's why you want to do it like an FK-IK switch, and then swap through like that. So usually during a fast motion. Now, if you have Animbot, there is a tool here, which I forget where it is, right here. So this button right here allows you to switch. So right here, rotation order, I can just swap the rotation orders on any control at any time, and it will keep the position for me. Animbot is an awesome plugin. I really love Animbot. So you can use that to do the same thing. If you don't have a tool, you're going to have to key these manually. Yeah, Xform as well, which is this one, copy Xform data. So either or, you can use that. So yeah, unfortunately, if you don't have a plugin, you're going to have to do it manually. But yeah, hopefully that helps. So double check if you're getting like severe gimbal through your animation, you want to make sure that you're using the right rotation order for that situation. Now let's get this pose in here. So this pose right here, this is going to be a very important one, because if we look at our reference, this is, you can see the difference between my posing. In the shot, his arms are straight, his back, he's totally bent over. This is going to make a lot of power in our swing right here. That snap back right there is going to be huge. You can almost feel the shoulders almost popping out of their sockets right there, as his hips kind of keep pushing back right through here. In my shot, if I look at this, I'm getting bleh. Look at that. So powerful. So this breakdown is going to be most important. And is it more valuable for us to animate in gimbal mode? No. I very rarely, if ever, animate in gimbal mode. I always just use object or world. I will use gimbal mode to test things. I will make sure, like I showed before, am I getting gimbal lock in this situation? Is a better rotation mode going to help me with that? Okay, great. I can push it there. Aside from that, I almost never use gimbal mode. It's just, to me, it's not that useful for everyday, day-to-day kind of animation. I would much rather just get the object in the position that I want. Okay, so I'm just looking at the feet here. The one foot is almost glued in place, so that's good to know. And then the other foot really drops down here. Now, there's nothing wrong with animating in gimbal mode. I will say that. Like, you don't have to avoid it at all costs. Not at all. It's a very good rotation mode. But for me, the biggest thing is that I don't really see a point to it. I just want to put the object in place where I need it to be quickly and efficiently. And I don't want to have to... What's the right word I'm looking for? I don't want to have to fight a bunch of controls in gimbal mode just to get the position in place and always kind of worry about, am I getting gimbal lock? Am I not? What's the best rotation I need to do in this situation? In most cases, I just want the object in that one spot. That's it. So I'm just going to get that object in that spot. So yeah, for me, no, I don't use it. Now, if you prefer to use it, that is fine. There's, like I said, nothing wrong with using gimbal mode at all. Now here, the body is actually going to twist a little bit, and we're going to get kind of a pop back here of the butt. And the body. Let's double check here. So he swings. See how his butt snaps back here? And the shoulders go forward. So the shoulders went back here on the swing, and this is when they almost get flung forward. So swing, the shoulders go back. Here, shoulders go forward. Body twists around. Now, the character is going to get really broken here for a little bit. Okay, goes through. I'm just looking at the hips right now, trying to get those in place. So swing really impacts right in there. So if I look at the silhouette, you can really feel those hips go back right there. And then the shoulder needs to go forward. But my spine right now is kind of a mess, so I'm going to just zero it out. Let's see. Is it more valuable for us to... Oh, wait. What gives the impact in the swing? The timing or the spacing? Both. Technically, like, a lot of people, when they're talking about timing and spacing, they always break it down. Like, there's timing and then there's spacing. They're very intertwined. They are timing and spacing. They go together. So as we're trying to push through all of this, we want our timing to be snappy, because of course, if it goes too slow and it's taking forever to get through, yeah, that's not going to be interesting. But if we have it take a lot of time and the character's like, let's say you can have a swing that goes like that. Your timing is very fast. That's interesting. But even at fast timing, if it's going, that's not going to be interesting. If you kind of, and you can see how my hand dragged a little bit, that's my spacing. And then it hits. So I've pushed a little bit more ease here, snap that forward. The timing could be slow, really slow, and then as it goes forward, if my spacing isn't interesting, I'll just go, and it's boring. But if I have it slow, it still took a long time to swing, but my spacing was more dynamic. So I guess in the end, technically spacing is more important, but they go hand in hand. If you make your timing longer, your spacing will have to be adjusted. If you make it shorter, your spacing will have to be adjusted. They are two sides of the same thing. When you change your timing, you're changing your spacing. When you're changing your spacing, you're in a way changing your timing, because the swing is holding more and then swings through. So you're just adding more of a hold, changing your timing. So it's confusing. I will put it that way. I try not to separate out those two principles as two absolutely separate things. They are definitely, they each have their own elements to them, but they work together more often than separately. Okay, I need to get this arm here so it's nice and straight. I'm going to try to get both arms as straight as I can here. Okay. So let's see how my arc is feeling right here. Okay. I want to try and play with the I guess you could say the depth of the bat here. Really have it feel like it's going away from camera right here. And the angle of the bat as well. So we really feel that change. It's pointing forward here. And then it swings back. And this is going to make that swing much stronger. Now, there's a lot of different ways I could do that. I could also have it hold here. So just kind of show visually. Look at the silhouette version here. Now it holds a little bit and then pops back. Duke holds, pops back. But that's not what I want to have happen. I don't want him to feel like he's going this and then snaps the bat back. I want it to feel like it cracks, like, and just comes back, and we've got that energy just whipping through. If I was going to add a hold, I would add a hold at the moment of impact. Again, that's going into that anime punch principle, where to make a punch feel more impactful, they hold and then they go past. So I would want to push it in that direction if I was going to hold. So I would hold more at this pose. And maybe we'll do that. We'll see. Nothing's locked in stone yet. There's no, you have to do it this way. It has to be this way. It's animation. We can do what we want. I'm using the reference as my guide because I do want it to feel a little bit more physical versus cartoony. But later on, we can really just try to push this if we wanted to. Let's fix his neck. The neck is still going to be forward. The head goes back. This is a common mistake I see with students, is they'll often like push the neck back like this. Our necks don't really go that far back. Try this yourself. Try to put your neck as far back as possible. You're just going to get this. You're going to get the double chins. That's it. Instead, if you want to put the head back, the head goes back. You'll notice my neck doesn't move back. Not really. So the neck here is going to stay forward. The head snaps back. And I can push this a little bit and really have that head kind of stay down in the shoulders here a little bit. Kind of exaggerate that element there. So we just kind of get that snap. Now, if you remember, the hips go back, shoulders go forward. I feel like I need to push that a little bit more here. Right there. And then that way the head kind of stays more in place. I think I pushed the head a little too far. Now here I'm starting to get a wiggle. See how it goes forward and then pops back there? And then goes forward again. I want to try and avoid that if I can. It should go forward. And we should get a little bit of an ease. But I don't want it to wiggle back and forth. Let's see. Oh, and thanks for the reminder. Almost choked on my water there. Let's see. I heard somewhere recently about Elabs, World Space add-on that they use as a substitute for doing constraints. Do you know how that works? I actually haven't heard about that before. So, unfortunately not. I'll definitely have to check that out, though. I know that with Animbot, they have kind of substitutes for constraints. And essentially what they're doing is they're copying the world form data, which is essentially where is the object position in world space. And they just copy that and then paste it onto the object and kind of, they do some math to basically hold things in place, which is really cool. It's not really a constraint, but it can act like a constraint. See, I'm starting to lose that straight that I want here. I want this to really feel like there's a straight through. Feel that energy in the swing. Head's too far back. You can see how much I cheated the head here. I pushed it way down because now my spacing on the head doesn't feel like it goes way up and then down. I'm just cheating that whipping motion. Now I'm gonna have to refine that later in splines, but hey, it works. Now here, my body is feeling like a brick. So I'm going to twist that a little bit. I want that shoulder and clavicle on the back to be a little bit more visible. Right there. This is going to help add that twist to the body. Right through there. Okay. Okay. I think we're pretty close there. Let's just hit... Actually, I'll hold off on hitting play. But we've got that pretty much in place. I feel like if I'm going to change anything, I'd bring this further back here. That way. And then I also want to change this hand position here. Okay. So we've got that. We've got the walk out. We need 2 more breakdowns. Or technically 1 more. Yeah, 1 more and then potentially 2 quick breakdowns. Hopefully I'll have time. So the main breakdown we need is this throw right here. So right now we've got 5 frames. Without changing the timing, what I'm going to want is kind of the mid throw. Just to help make that read. Now I think I'm going to go frame 90 because frame 90 is when he lets go of the hat, I believe. The hat kind of disappears in the smear. So it's either going to be 89 or 90. Either one of those is going to be important because I want either the frame before he lets go of the hat or the frame where he lets go of the hat. Let's see, that could lead to more work down the road using the Animbot feature, right? I'm not sure I want to try that. Oh, for the constraints? It depends on the situation. If you just need, like here, my hat just lifts off and he throws it, and overall it's like, it's going to be a total of maybe 10 frames. I don't want to have to do a constraint for 10 frames of animation, do this whole complex setup when I can just quickly put a few keys, hit a button, and it puts it in place and I'm done. That saves a lot of time. For this whole baseball bat situation, I'm dealing with this for a whole, like up until he lets go, about 70 frames, close to 70 frames. That's nice to have a good constraint setup in there. Now I could do it with Animbot and not have to worry about constraints at all for the whole thing. But once again, it's what's going to save me time in the long run. And in my case, a constraint setup there is just going to make certain things a lot easier. So yeah, it's really dependent. Some people will only ever use constraints. Other people will only ever use Animbot. And there's no wrong answer. It's whatever you feel okay with. Now here, I've got the arm in IK here. It's going to swing down and it's going to be FK right here. Now, I want this FK IK switch to happen when the arm is moving fast. So I'm probably going to have it switch between 89 and 90 because that's going to be a very fast section there. By 90 to 92, the arm should be kind of easing a little bit. So I'm actually going to have the arm in FK at this position here. I'm just getting this in first because it is going to be very important in just getting that motion through. Let's see. Shoulder. Let's actually get the feet in here. So at this point, this foot hasn't touched the ground yet. It's still in the air. That's the contact pose there. So let's make sure I don't have any foot rolls. Nothing like that. Don't need toe twist. I'll have to double check that I don't have toe twist anywhere else. And the leg is going to be straight. Now the hips here. This foot. Let's see. This is going to be past. I'm going to keep the foot roll low. If there is any foot roll, it's going to be very slight. And instead, I'm just going to bring the hips up a little bit there and back. Now, this is where I could check the graph editor. Just double check my translates. Make sure I'm not getting too much of a wiggle in here that is kind of linear. So again, graph editor is a great tool to use as you're blocking. It's not just a final refinement tool. I would say that's kind of one of the big areas where I see students struggle with the graph editor is that they will often use it only as a polish tool when really it is a kind of global cleanup tool. Now here, this is my rotate Y. This is where the character is pointing. I could simplify this curve. Now I'm not going to do it here, but just as a preview, what I'm going to end up doing is just cleaning it up like this. So it's just this nice, clean, smooth transition as his body is twisting. And then I can just use the hip control. For now, I'm just going to try to clean this up a little bit because it's kind of messy. Right there. Try to make that a little bit more linear. Okay. Just so I don't have any random pops and wiggles. Okay. Now the body here. He's throwing. Let's see what the biggest change is. Again, when you're looking at your reference, one of the big things is just look at what the biggest change is in a section. Right here, you can see that the chest is moving forward, definitely. The legs are kicking out, but the biggest motion are the arms. They're doing this kind of pincer motion. So let's get the body in place here. Leg kicks out, good. I feel like I could push the body back a little bit here. Get a little bit more hang time. And then the body itself needs to have a little bit of a arc forward, twist. So we definitely need to feel the body changing here compared to right here. Let's push that back a little bit. Okay, feeling that a little bit, maybe a little too much. Okay, and then let's get the arms in place. This arm is pretty much going to be close to the final position where it was here. With the elbow a little straighter. So we have the elbow lead the action, or the upper arm lead the action, and the elbow kind of overlap right there. And let's push the shoulder down a little bit here so we get that swing through. Okay, like that. And then the other arm, let's push the clavicle down, push it forward, and get that arm lower. This arm needs to be higher here. Now here, both arms are kind of feeling parallel to each other. I don't want that. So I'm going to try and push this a little bit more. Let's bend the elbow here. So we have that visual difference between the two arms. Now, once again, the arms are still a little complex in this section. I would need another breakdown right here to help describe what's happening with the arms. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to have time for that. So let's get this through here. I think I might drag the hand a little bit. And let's get the cap in place here. Now, for the cap, this is where I have to think, like, do I want it to be thrown or still held here? So I could just kind of put it there, and then it's gone. I think for now, just for the blocking process, that's what I'm going to go with. And then as I refine this later, I can figure out, like, do I want that? Do I want it to be gone completely? What should happen? Now, actually here, between here and here, I'm not really feeling like the arm really extend. So let's kind of fix that by bringing this up higher over here and bending the elbow a little bit more. Essentially dragging up a little bit. So now as it goes down, we really feel that swipe. Oops, wrong control there on the hat. Always double check your controls, make sure you're using the right one. Okay. Now I don't want to go too far with this pose here, because again, a lot of it is going to depend on what happens after. So I'm just really getting that breakdown so we can see what happens with the hat. So how does that feel? Yeah, not bad. There we go. So let's see. You do blocking already in spline? Yes, I always block in splines nowadays. I very, very rarely ever block out of splines in step mode. I feel like we could feel this arm leading just a little bit more right here. Swing through. There we go. Let's look at the whole thing. Yeah, already those few breakdowns have helped describe the action a lot more clearly. So the last two breakdowns, if I had the time, would be right here at the end. Now, why do I do blocking splines? Because it's a little faster in the long run when you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, blocking splines is a nightmare. When I first started learning animation, I was told, hey, you should try blocking splines. And I did. And it sucked. And I vowed to myself that I would never do it again. And once I got more practice, I tried again. And the thing that blocking splines does is that you're still blocking. You're still doing everything that you did in blocking before, still thinking of your poses as separate poses. Like you'll notice I'm skipping through. I'm not scrubbing. I'm just going from pose to pose, just like I would as if I was in step mode. But the advantage is, let's say I need to put a breakdown right here. Now, if I was in step mode, that means that I would set a key. Let's put a key right here, set a key. And now you see I've got two poses right here, there and there. The character is not moving. I have to move every single element on this character to make sure that that works now. I have to move the hips forward. I have to rotate them. I have to do every single little tweak. If I block in splines, let's say I want to put my breakdown. Let's see, where do I want it? 99, 106. So 7 frames. Let's go 103. So let's say I want to put a breakdown right here. Well, I'll select all my controls right here, hit S to set a key, and you'll notice that it's already moving forward for me. Great. Now, all I need to do is go through each control and make the big changes. So for example, on this foot is probably going to be up a little bit. So toe roll. I'm not using that pose that it created for me as the final pose and is complete, but I can use it as kind of a starting point. The hips are already forward for me. This leg is already in the air, kind of in place. Just have to make sure I don't have any foot roll here. And then kind of whoop, straighten it out. Right there. Watch my weight shifts here. That's good. Okay. Let's raise that up a little bit right there and move it back. But you can see how it gave me a little bit of... This basically just gave me some stuff to work from. And now, for example, I don't have to change the knees. They already moved for me and they're pretty much in position there. I don't have to do all the different rotations on the hips. I would definitely double check them, make sure that they're correct. But if nothing's really changing on one section, I don't have to make a big change. And now I'm not getting a stair step effect or some weird section that doesn't move. It just kind of simplifies certain things. Now, again, that doesn't mean that I'm forgetting things or that I am ignoring them. It just means that I am focused on the main elements and using Maya, what Maya does best, to make my life just a little bit easier. So once you kind of get into the habit of doing that, it just speeds up your workflow, essentially. But again, and I want to reiterate it, I am not using it as a kind of Get out of jail free. Yep, don't have to animate anymore. Just let Maya do its thing and click, done. Haha. That is the worst thing you can do for your animation. But this also goes when you're using something like Tween Machine or Tween Key or any tool that puts a in between for you. Animbot has the ease tools and the tween tools down there. If you're using those to get your in-betweens, but then not actually changing them afterwards, you're going to be in a mess of trouble. Now here my translation is slowing down a lot for some reason, so I'm going to bring this back here just a little bit. Or bring this forward. So I hope that makes sense. It's definitely something, don't feel like you have to do it. That you have to block in splines. It's really just a personal preference. Now, let's actually add one more breakdown here. I know I don't really have time and I have to really rush it, so let me just do it super quick here. Normally I would put the down pose, but the down pose is right after the contact here because of the throw. So I'm just going to break it down right in the middle. So right around 45 or 46. Let's go 40 or 95, I should say, because that's when his other arm changes direction. So 95 is the extreme for that arm. So let's quickly add a breakdown here, and then I'm gonna have to get going. So foot roll 0, toe twist. Don't need that toe twist in there. I don't know why I have toe twist. So let me get rid of it. We don't even see the feet anyway, so it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Yeah, got added in somewhere along the way, and now it's haunting me. There we go. So where was I? 95. So this foot's flat on the ground. The other foot is going to be in the air, so foot roll 0. Just something like that. The hips, their forward translations should be pretty much set for me. Again, that's where blocking and splines can be very helpful. So I can just raise it up a little bit more here. I feel like this foot's raising off the ground a little too soon, actually. I might... Let's see. I'm going to try, see if I can really exaggerate the foot roll here and just have it like pushing off from the toes still. Now, I need a little bit more bend. But what I can do is just bring this a little lower so I don't see the ankle come up too soon. Okay, so here the arm is going to be at its lowest right there. Straighten it out a little bit. Let's see. Translation of the hips is going to go over because he needs to balance himself on this big step that he's going to do. The foot here can drag a little bit more. So again, even though I'm working in splines and I'm getting a lot of stuff for free, I am trying to think of how can I push things to make them read more clearly, to get more weight, to get more ease-ins, ease-outs, whatever I need. Let's get this arm a little closer to the body. Get that clavicle down a little bit further. Now this arm, coming back. Try to keep my silhouette clear. So right now it's not clear because the hand is overlapping itself, or the hands are overlapping. So I can just kind of do something like that, and that helps to add that clarity. Now here I'm getting, I've mentioned this before, what I call invisible strings, where both hands feel like they're tied together and are moving kind of as a unit. So I want to avoid that as much as I can. Right there, see how they kind of feel like they're moving just in tandem? So what I can do here is maybe just bring this arm further back here. And now that helps a little bit, but now we're getting a silhouette switch right here. So if I put my mouse cursor right there, see how the hands right there just switch places? I don't want that. So there's all sorts of things you have to watch out for. This is why animation, when you're animating, you have to think through things. You can never just like turn your brain off and just go, well, just put things where they need to be. Done. You need to always kind of think, okay, how can I improve this? What can I do to make this better? What's the silhouette? What's the line of action? Everything that you learn in class 1 with the posing assignments, which I know everyone hates. Every year there's always, why do we need to do these posing assignments? Why do we have to do this? There should be posing assignments should be banned. They should be gotten rid of. The reason you're doing posing assignments is because everything comes down to posing. Everything. So you want to really know how to pose out your characters, how to think of your silhouettes, all of that stuff. There we go. So now we've got the ending. It kind of feels like these two poses ease a little too much right here. Partly, let's actually look at it from the side view here. If you look at my translation, let's look at the graph editor, translate Z, it's pretty linear right there at the end. It eases a little bit, like I could pull that back a little bit right there. Aside from that, this is pretty darn linear. But if you look at my shot, it feels like it's slowing down. The reason for that is because I've got the camera move in place. And that camera move is making it feel like the character is moving slower than they actually are, because it's following with them. So they feel like they're easing to a stop right here. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something I have to pay attention to. And I have to make sure that I am not overcompensating with my curves and trying to make him feel like he's moving faster than he should be. Otherwise, I could just run into a bunch of issues as I go into splines. So always be aware of what's going on in your scene. Okay, so I think let's call it here because I do have to get going. So let's take a look at this shot. I got to see, fed up by blocking in steps. I wanted to offset some things early and key certain controls without touching others. Yeah, in that case, you're starting to do what's called layered animation, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're aware of what you're doing. And for anyone who hasn't done that, when you're first animating in splines, one thing I would recommend is trying to avoid layered animation at first until you're used to splined animation. And then from there, you can start doing layered animation and you can really speed up your workflow even more. So let's see, quick question. What would you do if for quite some time you have been stuck on a shot, not able to improve it in a significant way. Would you restart it from scratch? I would probably take a break from it first. Maybe start on another shot if you can. If you're in a studio environment, a lot of times you're going to be working on multiple shots at the same time, not just one shot. So if you're stuck on one, take a break from that, work on your other shots, and then come back to this one. Take a break from it. And then when you come back to it, it's going to get you a better idea of, is this salvageable? Can I make this better? Or should I just start over? If you're not sure which way to go, take a break. Now, if you come back and you're not sure still, get some feedback on it. Ask someone else's opinion. That's going to be the best way to do it. Because to be fair, we are our own worst critics. And I've had many shots where it's like, you know, I should just restart this shot. It sucks. My idea was terrible. Why did I pick this thing? When really all I'm doing is being picky on myself and like, I should have picked the other idea. It would have been better. But then I show my shot to, for example, Cameron or someone else, and it's like, no, this is good. Like, just keep going with it. It's going to get better. Of course, it doesn't look good. You're in like first pass blocking. So it can be very easily just us being hypercritical. By taking a break and then coming back, you kind of refresh your eyes, and now you can make a more informed decision, regardless of which way you're going to go with it. And is layered animation the same as using animation layers? No. Animation layers is a tool in Maya. Layered animation is animating certain things at certain times. So for example, I could just animate only the hips through this scene, polish those up, and then animate the spine, and then animate the arms after. There's a lot of different ways of approaching layered animation, but it's just a workflow, whereas animation layers is a tool. Let's see. Sometimes I see in studios someone doing some test animation for a movie, but don't animate on it. How do they choose what animators would tackle which shots? That's different based on every studio. So unfortunately, I can't really give an answer to that. A lot of times it's the animation supervisor, animation lead, who is going to assign shots to animators based on their skill sets. But as animators, we can also request to have certain shots, especially if we want to tackle something different, or if we just really like a shot and it's like, man, I want to animate that shot. We can request it. Doesn't mean we're gonna get it, but some studio will go, yeah, sure, here you go. So every studio is different. Usually it's the supervisor or lead that's going to determine who gets which ones. And if you're using layered animation, would you still have key poses where all the controls are keyed on the same frame? Or would everything be offset? It depends on how you do it. You could do it like this and then step into layered animation, or I could have gone right into layered animation right from the start and just animate the hips throughout the whole scene, then only animate the feet throughout the whole scene, and like everything is on a separate path, and I'm not keeping keys in line whatsoever. It really just depends on what you want to do for that scene. And yeah, so for me, for most acting shots, I kind of prefer the pose to pose hybrid method, but for something like a quadruped shot, I definitely use I'll just animate the chest of the creature first, then I'll get the hips to follow along, then I'll add the legs, and I don't care if the keys line up as long as it feels good. So yeah, it really just depends. Now let's take a look at our shot here, because I do have to get going, and this is only the keys, so let's see how it feels. Definitely clearer. Definitely still needs a lot of work. That swing, the keys add a lot more visual interest, but I am feeling a little bit of a hitch in it. So I definitely need to push my arc a little bit more. I feel like the steps as he walks out, they speed up and slow down. Now, to be fair, that's because I've got this step here where I've got something on 6s, and then I've got 3s, and then 3s and 2s and 3s and 4s. So that's kind of affecting that speed there. If I was to scrub through here, you can see that the speed is much more even. There's still a little bit of a speed up right here, so I'll have to look at my graph editor for that. But if I kind of play through in splines here, you can see that the walk doesn't look as bad. So something to always be aware of is how are your keys spaced? And a hitch, yeah, right here as he swings between this pose and this pose, I feel like the bat needs to be more around here because it feels like it's kind of sticking too much on the extreme here. I want it to swing through a little faster. So I feel like the bat should be right like halfway between the chin and where the bat is now, somewhere around there. And that should help avoid this kind of like pause in the swing. Let's see. We definitely need a facial pass in there, but that's going to be probably a little later. The hat definitely needs a few more breakdowns to really make that clear what's happening. Probably 2 more very quick breakdowns. But for a blocking pass, I wouldn't worry about that now. That's starting to get into like blocking plus, splining, refining kind of stuff. But overall, it's not bad. Again, definitely a lot of work still that needs to be in there. I need to do a proper hand pass, put a lot more breakdowns in there. Definitely go in with my graph editor, clean things up. But the core of the mechanics is in there. I'm not getting any major pops. I'm not getting any like areas where it's like, what the heck is going on with his hips or his body or his spine is wiggling. I would say the weakest area right now is the walk out. And that's mostly because of the breakdowns. There's definitely a little bit of a wiggle in his spine. Right, yeah. Like there's here, from this key to this key, there's a weird like shift and pop in his shoulders. I would fix that with the graph editor, probably. Just double check what's happening in my curves there. And yeah, the angle of the head during the swing feels a little off. It feels like it holds in a place that I'm not a fan of. But that's all little things that can be easily fixed and kind of tweaked later. So there's nothing like groundbreaking, oh my god, this is terrible, I need to fix this. It's all just, what would be the right word? Cosmetic more than anything. A few spacing issues. Nothing that I can't just kind of fix in like 30 minutes kind of thing. Let's see. If in a studio, would you present this to your supervisor director at this stage? So I would have presented, it depends on the situation I'm in. If I didn't have a clear idea of what the shot was supposed to be, I would have presented this a little earlier to my lead or supervisor, probably in the previs pass or like somewhere within there, to get buy off on the idea, like, is this working? Is the camera working? All of that stuff, which reminds me, I do have to change the camera a little bit so I can see the hat more clearly. But I would get buy off on that. And then I would probably, at this point, depends on the studio, this might be a good spot to show your director. Some directors would want more information. Some directors are okay with less information. Usually it's if the director is used to animation before. If a director is not used to animation, if they're like a live action director that's dealing with animation for the first time, usually you're going to put more information so they can understand what's going on. Because they're not going to understand what blocking is. They're going to look at it as like, where's everything else? It's missing half the information. They're used to dealing with actors, not with stepped mode. But yeah, at this point, I would be comfortable showing it to a director, or if you're an animation mentor, to a mentor, and getting some feedback on this before I do any major changes. Because at this point, the more things I put in, if I suddenly have to change the swing, I'm gonna have to redo a lot of work. And this is where you want to ask yourself, like, how far do you want to go before you're gonna have to redo a whole chunk of work? Like, if my director comes in and goes, I'm not a fan of how he throws the hat. At most I can change 4 poses and I'm good. If I put in, like, let's say 3 more poses to really get that swing to feel right, and they go, hey, you've got to change this whole swing, I'm going to have to change a good chunk of my animation, probably from frame like 40 to 50. So about 30 frames of animation and however many poses I put in there just to make that change. And then might have to change things afterwards, after the swing. So I want to present it early so that I don't ever have to make huge changes, but not so early that the director or the supervisor has no idea what's going on. So it's a balance, and everyone is different. So this is why when you're in a studio, you have to know who your directors are and make sure that you talk to your supervisor of what stages they want to see things presented. And same thing with your mentor. If you're not sure, ask them in the Q&A. How far do you want me to go with this? Should I only put the storytelling poses? Do you want me to go as far as I can? Get their feedback. Every mentor is different because they have the way that they teach and the way they want you to approach the workflow. And that's not a bad thing because that's how the industry is. Everyone is different. Every studio is different. So ask those questions. See, how does animating straight ahead work in a studio environment when you're only allotted a certain amount of frames and the shot needs to hook up to another shot? Since you need to lengthen, shorten the shot depending on timing, whereas with post-pose, you know where the animation ends. If you're animating straight ahead in a studio, you have to animate to the frame rate or to the frame range. So if you're given 100 frames, if you're animating straight ahead, you end it at 100 frames, and it just takes practice. And usually what animators will do is a hybrid where it's not true straight ahead, where you just animate from frame 1 and just go forward. Usually it's going to be like you animate a quick pass straight ahead, but like going in big chunks, kind of block out your scene, or you're going to have a previs pass like I did, where you kind of get the main idea and motion and timing. And then from there, you animate straight ahead so that you know what you need to hit. So if you don't have a previs pass or a layout animator doing this for you, that kind of planning, you have to do it yourself. You have to plan out your shot. You have to do a quick previs pass, know what beats you want to hit, and then go straight ahead. And straight ahead is better than post-pose? It's different. It really depends. I kind of work in a hybrid way. So you'll notice that I've been working pose to pose for the most part when I first went through the pass, but this time it's kind of a hybrid where I'm going one pose to the next one, and then I'm seeing like how does it flow between, and I'm kind of just going through the next to the next. And certain shots I do love straight ahead. It makes such nice organic motions. But I've had shots where if I tried straight ahead, there's no way that I would hit the beats that you need. So straight ahead animation, post-pose animation, layered animation, there's not one better than the other. They are all tools that you will use at different times. And you might have preferences, and this goes for everyone. Like you might have a preference, but don't count out the other methods just because.